What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gonzo, and as you can see today, I'm not alone. It's not a pack battle. It's going to be something totally different for the channel. Something I want to try get people to get to know other people in the community. And today we have the happiest member of the Cardboard Addicts podcast, a Grumpy Charizard. Grumpy, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's going on, everybody? I am Grumpy from the Cardboard Addicts podcast. If you've seen us, we do basic, interviews and whatnot. Kind of just review TCGs. We cover a lot of Pokemon. Kind of stay with the latest and greatest and that sort of stuff and collectibles and stuff. So maybe you've seen us, maybe you want to check us out. But yeah, I'm one of the four members from there. So yeah, glad to be a part of Gonzo's first interview.
All right. Where can people catch you besides Cardboard Addicts podcast?
So I myself, I have all the social medias, Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And then as far as like content creation, I mainly do anything on like Twitch. I used to do YouTube and kind of move past that. But yeah, so Twitch, at, I guess twitch.tv/Grumpy Charizard. If you ever want to stop by, I play a lot of Pokemon. I play other games such as like Call of Duty. We do openings. We build Legos and nano blocks and stuff. Like to think it's a good time.
And all those links will be in the description down below, guys. If you want to go check him out, I would greatly appreciate it. He's a great friend, great member of the community. We are going to, for this kind of interview style, we are going to talk about Pokemon for the most part, but it is a community-based thing. So like Grumpy said, he does all kinds of cardboard collectibles, nostalgics. At one point, he did MetaZoo. If you guys are interested in that story, go over to the Cardboard Addicts podcast videos section, and you'll find out why almost all of them got banned and blocked from MetaZoo. It is a great show. But for now, let's talk about a little bit of your Pokemon background, since this is a primarily Pokemon channel. How old were you when you first got into the hobby? Not just the hobby itself, like watching the anime, playing your first games, stuff like that.
Shoot, I would say I was probably about like 6 or 7. So I have a bunch of cousins, and I have two older cousins that got into Pokemon first. And I remember, I think they both had Game Boys, and one had red and one had blue for the games. And I remember watching them play and just being like, what is this, And then I remember in, I think, first grade getting a Game Boy Color, the kiwi green one with gold. And then I remember getting a bunch of Pokemon cards and all that. And from there, it was just, being on the bus, trading with friends, and being in class, trying to like sneak some Game Boy time in my desk and all kinds of stuff. I remember my parents yelling at me for taking my Game Boy to school because they thought it was going to get broken or stolen,
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been a Pokemon fan ever since then. So yeah, probably I would say around the year like 2000-ish, 2001.
Gee, I completely forgot how much older I am than you. My first game was Yellow. Viewers of my channel for a long time have known that. How did your I have a really interesting story how my favorite Pokemon became Raichu. Tell us how your favorite Pokemon became Blastoise, Charizard.
Yeah. So I think it was because of my cousins. I think it was just, seeing like the red and blue, seeing the red copy with Charizard on it. And then like, I think that cousin had Charizard, obviously chosen Charmander as a starter and got the Charizard. And I was like, it's funny because they were what, like 8-bit pixels then. So like,
Yeah.
not exactly a great picture, but like seeing the anime and stuff and the cards, I was just like, wow, this like dragon looking thing, even though he's not a dragon. I was just enamored by that. And I love like all the fire Pokemon. So being a fire Pokemon too was like the icing on the cake for me. So that's how I picked Charizard. It's not a super, illustrious story or anything like that. It's like your stereotypical person, basically. Okay. I'm very basic.
But Charizard has a really interesting background on why he's not a dragon. For you guys who don't know why, for Generation 1, he initially was designed to be a fire dragon Pokemon. but because Gen 1 was such a broken and busted game in how the balancing worked, they couldn't theoretically make Charizard a fire dragon, especially for the fire starters, when
Right.
Dragon was probably one of the most busted types in the game besides Psychic. So like, we'll just make him dragon flying. So he initially was supposed to be dragon flying. So
Which
I
is
guess.
funny to me because dragon, like, if you think about like dragons, you know, what you see in movies and TV shows and all that kind of stuff. When I think of dragon, I think of flying inherently. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they
Yeah.
kind of go synonymous together. Well, I guess not flying means dragon, but dragon would mean they fly, is what I would think. You know?
Right. Yeah. It's not
so
like
it's funny the way they have to add that stuff in there.
Yeah. So my favorite Pokemon, I don't know if you know the story yet. Well, you know my favorite Pokemon's Raichu. We have a major back and forth every
Yes.
time someone brings up one of the others. So my very first game was Pokemon Yellow. I was 10 years old when it came to America. I remember watching the anime when I was a kid, playing, like, pretend with all the other poor kids. I didn't have the game. But for Christmas, my aunt and my cousin got me the special edition Pokemon Yellow Game Boy Color with the Game Boy game. So I had the Pikachu and everything on the screen. My cousin, who also had Yellow, he knew that, oh, Raichu doesn't evolve. And he's a little older than me. Or Pikachu doesn't evolve in this game. It won't let you. So he's like, hey, can I? He's like, let me get your Pikachu really quick. And this is right after, I think, like, the second gym after Misty. And you just found out that, like, if you turn around and talk to Pikachu, it does all the emotions. And I was like, I love Pikachu following me around. It's so cool. And he goes, yeah, you can do it to Raichu. I'm like, really? I get a stronger one and it follows me? He knew it didn't. He was messing with me. He thought I was going to get really upset. But I was like, oh, well, it's stronger. And then I just absolutely fell in love with Raichu because essentially it is my very first Pokemon. But then Raichu in the anime with Lieutenant Surge was classic. I don't know why I like the derp so much. All you knew was electric moves, so one Diglett could destroy him.
Yeah.
But that is why Raichu is my favorite Pokemon. Has a very huge sentimental reason to me as a 10-year-old child. Well, maybe 11 at that point, because I think Yellow did come out fairly after Red and Blue.
I don't remember the timeline for sure, but
I know it was such a long time ago.
Kid, I know that much.
Yeah, no, I was at least 10. I know that for sure. So that's how you got your name. It just, again, I guess like mine, but I didn't put Raichu in mine. I put the Dex number.
Right.
What was your? Do you have a non-mainline game that you enjoy, like your favorite one
of Pokemon?
Yeah.
Does Snap count as a mainline? Are you? Yeah. Snap would be a non-mainline. Yes. Snap was
which version?
The original on N64.
Oh, 64. Okay.
I played that game. There'd be Saturdays. You know, you don't have school. You wake up. It's like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. maybe. And I just remember just rolling straight over to my N64, plopping down in the chair, and I'd play that for hours. Like, hours and hours. And it was funny because I had my N64 up until, I would say probably like 2008. And for whatever reason, at this point, I was kind of like phasing out of, like, I wanted to play like Call of Duty and stuff like that with my friends. So I traded all of my N64 stuff to my friend for an older Xbox, which was in hindsight, a terrible decision. So flash forward to like 2017, my now wife's family bought me an N64 because I'd been talking about that stuff, and they bought me a handful of games, and I was like, oh my god, like I got an N64 again. I'm gonna go get Pokemon Snap. And I remember I went and got it. We got back to my house, and I started playing, and I probably played it for like 6 or 7 hours straight and made my wife watch me play it for that whole time. Yeah.
Did you offer her a chance to play at any point?
Oh, yeah. I told her, if you want to try it, it's super simple. It's not really complicated. But now she had no desire. So
did you get the new Pokemon Snap for the Switch?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a funny story too, because I was when they announced it, I was like, oh my god, like so much nostalgia. Like,
right.
For sure,
that's how everyone was.
But Pokemon Snap was just like so different for me because like you're not catching Pokemon, you're literally
No.
just taking pictures, and there was like little nuances in the game to like unlock this hidden level, and
Mm.
so I was like so excited when they announced it because I'd been saying for years like why don't they do that? And so it was funny. I woke up. I think I took that day off when they when it released. I went to our local Walmart, and I live out in the boonies for those of you who understand that. They didn't have it on the shelf. Like it's like
His
10
biggest store
a.m.
is the TJ Maxx.
Right. Yeah, we just got a TJ Maxx and they're just like, "Oh my god." But yeah, so I went bright and early to Walmart and they're like, "We didn't get it in yet." And I'm like, "What do you mean you didn't get it in?" So then I had to drive into
It's
town to
release
go get
day.
it. Yeah, I'm just like, it's not even like it's 6 a.m. Like I'm the first person like at the store. It's like 10 a.m. by the time I got there because I was trying to like give them some time.
Well, when you
And
mean out in town, do you mean like you had to drive like an extra 30 minutes past the Walmart?
more like 40-ish, but yeah. I mean, like once where we used to live, there's so
Okay.
much more. There's like 4 Walmarts, 4 Targets, like any store you can think of is over there. So like
Yeah.
whenever we're going shopping, like that's where we go.
Okay.
But yeah, it was annoying just because I had to do that extra running around in the morning, thinking I would just have gone to the quick Walmart, and instead I had to go into town. But
Going
yeah,
to the fancy Walmart where they have a
yeah.
greeter.
And then it was funny because so from the Cardboard Addicts podcast, our guy Sudon, he'd gotten the game and he was streaming it, and it was funny because while he was streaming, like when he first started, I'd gotten him to kick into an Australian accent. He's American for those of you who don't know, but it was just funny like trying to listen to him like go through. I mean, he didn't keep up with it very long, but I thought that was hilarious when he would do it because he's all like, "Crikey, mate, it's an Electabuzz," and like all this stuff. It was really funny watching him do that. But yeah, that was like my childhood. When I think of Pokemon, Snap is
Yeah.
like top of the list for sure. That was such a great game. So
So
simple too.
I'm assuming you beat the first one on Nintendo 64.
As far as I know, I've never like looked up what fully beating it means, but I remember
Right.
getting to like the Mew level and going back because once you got to like certain levels, you could go back and unlock this next piece and all that. I know
Yeah.
the new one's a lot more complicated. I've beaten most of it. I beat the main game, but
Oh,
I
I
hadn't.
definitely have not.
Yeah, it's a lot longer, which is cool. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they have the technology and the man hours to like put into everything, but they did a lot. I don't want to say a lot better, but they did better with the game in the sense of like they added way more to it. So it's not you play it for one day, you beat it.
Yeah.
Because that's how the original one was. You could sit through it in
Oh,
like a
yeah.
one day sitting and knock it out. But N64 to Nintendo Switch, I would hope there's more to the game.
Oh, there's a lot more to the game. I don't get me wrong. I love Pokemon Snap, especially the 64. Very nostalgic, especially throwing Apple at the Charmeleon pops out. Like,
Yeah.
like, did I just murder that thing?
Yeah,
No.
you gotta knock them into the lava.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the new one, I don't know what it is for me. I think the farthest I got was to the very first section where you're completely underwater the whole time.
Mhm.
And I didn't even play that level. I just haven't picked it up since then because it's the repetitiveness. I know words. When I have to keep repeating things, I get a little bored with it. I'll probably,
Yeah.
but after this interview, now I have that itch. I'm like, oh, what is
Right,
down there?
right.
So I'll probably
Yeah.
play it for like a day or two. Then I remember why it's collecting dust.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
I do love it though.
I got to the point where I think I've unlocked all the levels and I've gotten through like most things. Because I know there's like each level has a mythical Pokemon on it or something, and
Yeah.
there's like certain ways to get them to actually be like to take a picture. Some of them are literally you have to spin around, do this, clap 3 times, like
Oh
do a
yeah, throw
twerk. Like
that light ball
yeah,
at it now. Yeah.
it's so much more like kind of complicated that it kind of is cool, but it almost is like overwhelming. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
the original was just so simple. You literally just had apples. You know what I mean? And if
Yeah.
if you
No,
didn't time it right, you'd just start over.
you had the smoke ball. I think the smoke ball replaced, or the light ball replaced the smoke ball.
Was there a smoke ball?
I think I'm almost positive there was a smoke ball.
Somebody leave us a comment letting us know.
Unless I smoked the
I
bowl
can't-
before this interview.
Yeah. I can't remember. I just remember the apples for sure, but there could have
Yeah.
been another thing. I don't remember.
I know there was. I think there's a Poke Flute too, because you had to wake up
Actually,
the Snorlax. Yeah.
Yeah,
You had
because
to-
there were certain ones too. If you did certain things, like if you didn't throw the apple, you could get stuck on the cart. I know the one where it's like electric. You
Yeah.
could get stuck on the Electabuzz because he just stands in the way, and you kind
Yeah.
of just like having this like standoff. Like one time I just wanted to see how long it would take, and I sat there for like 5 minutes. He never walks away. I was
No,
like,
no, no, he
okay.
doesn't. Okay.
But yeah.
We see a ton of pop figures behind you. A lot of them are not Pokemon related. What is your favorite non-Pokemon one? Because I'm just going to assume your favorite one is probably the giant target Charizard is your favorite Pokemon one.
Yeah, probably. Or I got the special metallic Charmander, which they're supposed to be coming out with a metallic Charizard. That's one of those
It's
rumors.
rumors until it's confirmed. Yeah.
My favorite non-Pokemon one, I would say, is either the Bobby Boucher one I just got for my birthday, or for Christmas. You can't see it because it's kind of buried behind stuff. But I got so my favorite band of all time is Blink-182, and Pop
It's a
does
local band for me, so I can't be mad at that.
So Pop does like album pop, so it'll be like the pop or the album cover, which would have been really cool if they put actual albums in there, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But they do the album cover and then the pop of the bandmates or
Yeah.
the singer, musician, whatever whatever they do. So in that case, they did the oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of that album.
The one with the porn star.
Yes, when she's doing that.
Enema of the State.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's that one.
Okay.
And my wife got me that one for Christmas, so that was really cool.
I didn't know Funko did that until you posted that on Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." But
yeah,
my wife will not let me get it because I guarantee I have no space for it.
Yeah, they did a Metallica one too. I want to say it was for
I bet
Ride
that
the
one's
Lightning.
huge.
Yeah, it was funny because it came out last year, and I wanted to get it, and it sold out like that. This was, you figure 2021 was like the year of the botters, and so anything that was like collectible just immediately was purchased up and everything. So that sucked because I really wanted to get that one too, because that's like my second favorite band of all time. But I did get it's like, I guess kind of like a concert moment is what it is. It's like them all on stage, like kind of mid performance. But it's for, I think, Master of Puppets, which you figure the whole Stranger Things thing like made Master of Puppets like insanely famous again. So
I
great
still
song,
haven't finished that season.
Bro, that's a long season. You figure each episode's like well over an hour.
Yeah, I think I'm on like episode 3, maybe 4. I just can't. I'm trying to get back into it. I like the first couple seasons, and now I'm just feel like I'm forcing myself to watch Stranger Things.
No, you gotta.
But I'm not mad at it. Yeah.
That season 4 it's great, but it certainly is like literally sitting through a series of movies. Yeah. Because I think the shortest episode's like an hour and 20 minutes. So.
And I think I already made past that episode. I think it was like episode 2.
I think the last 2 episodes are literally like 2 hours long. Yeah. So like,
and it's been out for so long. The spoiler alerts are already gone. So, well, no one cares about spoiler alerts anyways on the Instagram, the internet, the Facebooks.
No, you got about maybe 24 hours where people are like kind of conscious about that, and then after that, you're out the window.
I'm on the bandwagon of like for movies, like for big popular movies, like any of the Marvel movies. I give it about a week before I'm like, I'll post little spoilers, but I'm not going to post like the ending.
No, of course not. I usually don't post too much, not necessarily out of respect for the spoilers, but more just because none of them like move me that much to want to post about it, other than to say like, oh, this was a great movie, or I was let down by this movie, or
that's normally what I do too.
But then like we're in a friend chat together, and like we'll all talk about stuff, and it's a little different because it's like talking among friends versus making a post per se. But I feel what you're saying.
What? I just had a stroke for a second because I completely forgot where I was gonna. Oh, back to Metallica. Here's a controversial statement. I don't like them.
Wow.
I do not like Metallica.
So my thing with Metallica is there was a good while where I was trying to learn guitar. And I mean, I've always known of them, like certain songs. But my cousin, who also got me into Pokemon back in the day, is really good at guitar and like really good at all kinds of different, music with guitar. But Metallica is like one of his big idols as far as that goes. And so he got me really into them. And then for me liking it, and then Stranger Things, my wife is now really into them. So it's kind of funny because my wife is typically the type of person that listens to like a lot of oldies or like Disney jams and stuff like that. So sometimes I walk in the kitchen and she's blaring Metallica. I'm just kind of like, ooh, all right, it's very different. So, but it's fun. You know, we have a good time with that stuff. So she asked for a lot of Metallica shirts for Christmas. So
Really? Okay.
yeah,
That's cool.
now she's walking around a lot of band shirts. I'm just like, I've created a monster.
I think for me, for the stuff that I really enjoy that my wife was like, oh, that's mine now, you can't have it, is probably Funko. We have probably just as much as Funkos as you, but we're trying to sell some of them, because there's some that we're like, no, these are ours, and then we buy some. But there's just so many that we're like, we don't have the space for this. Like, we have like 4 or 5 bins full of Star Wars Funkos that we're just trying to get rid of.
Yeah, Funko's a dangerous game since they pretty much make any fandom you can think of. And I've certainly gotten some where I'm like, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have. Not that I spent a lot of money on them, but like they take up space. And I'm like, you know, like for example, I have a bunch of Star Wars ones too. Not a ton or anything. But I got a bunch of like what I think is like the key characters, because at one point I was going to get into it. I'm the only one of the Cardboard Addicts podcast who doesn't like Star Wars. It's just I've never sat through and watched them. And it's kind of like I never did as a kid. So now looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, you figure the Star Wars movies, the Mandalorian, the whatever else, like so many different shows where there's just like,
so many now.
I know if I get into one, I'm going to have to get into all of it type of deal. You know,
they're
not every single thing, but most things. So it's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that commitment.
I like, and you can't forget about the cartoons either that they had on Cartoon Network back in the day, like Clone Wars, the Clone Wars saga, like all of that. Most of that's canon. So if you want to watch things that are canon, it's such a ridiculous amount of watching. The books, it doesn't matter anymore. I think after Disney bought Star Wars, they're like, yeah, all these books that have been canon for the last 30 years, forget about it. They don't exist anymore.
Right.
So but tell us what you're doing outside of the Pokemon community. Like we've talked about Nostalgics. We talked about MetaZoo. But we already kind of hinted at they should go to your channel, not your channel, the Cardboard Addicts, and watch that, because it's a story on its own.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we started the Cardboard Addicts podcast, the concept was, you know, we were all kind of getting burnt out on our own channels. And from there it was like, oh, you know, we should do like a weekly podcast where we just kind of talk the news. Because this was like, as podcasts were starting to kind of become more of a thing. Not to say like, you know, we're like the first or anything like that with any stuff. Like, you know, Shadowless podcast, which you probably already all know. Yeah. We're well into theirs. They were like a year or so deep. But we liked that concept. Now the Shadowless focuses solely on Pokemon. And most podcasts do that. They focus on something versus kind of like a more generic genre. And that's what our thought process was. And that's why we came up with the Cardboard Addicts. Was cardboard, you know, this is cardboard, you know, your cards are cardboard. You know, you get collectible box like figures, because Sudon's really big into like Hasbro figures and stuff like that. So that was kind of the concept, was it's super generic. And so from there, we mainly focused on the big TCGs, you know, Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh! We started to like dabble in MetaZoo a little bit, because when we started the podcast, they had just put out their Kickstarter and everything.
They started out so strong too.
Yeah. So from MetaZoo's Kickstarter, we started to realize like, hey, there's other TCGs coming out on Kickstarter, or through Kickstarter, I guess. And so that's how we found about Nostalgics. They were another big one. If you know Zaba, Zaba's been in the community for a long time. He used to make custom cards, and they were really, really good custom cards. Like I think I actually have some of them. And he stopped doing that, obviously, to focus on the Nostalgics. And so that's how we started doing that. And then I guess this will be out in 2022, I think, right? When you put this out this week.
Yeah, I'll probably put it out today or sometime this weekend.
Gotcha. So
Yeah.
In 2021 is when Collecticon started, which was
Yes.
supposed to be like a TCG convention, which it pretty much is. I mean, there's other stuff, but for the most part, it's mainly card collecting, whether it's sports or, you know, Pokemon, whatever.
Right.
So in this year, we as in me and my wife, went to the Charlotte Collecticon. And when we were there, the concept was like, oh, you know, I want to see what it's like, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I was kind of also wanting to reach out to all the TCGs that were going to be there. Because a lot of TCGs that are up and coming go to these to like hand out promos and sample packs or discounted product to kind of get the word out there. You know what I mean? And so I met Nostalgic's MJ, who is I don't exactly know what her official title is, but she's
I
kind of
don't
like
either.
a coordinator, sort of,
Yeah.
slash like content creator for Nostalgics. Like she works for them. So as
She's
far as
probably like media, social media promoter.
right,
And
I,
like, yeah, she's
I'm
probably
sure.
wearing multiple hats.
Yeah, yeah,
It's still a
exactly.
fairly new company.
So she was there with Zaba. I didn't get to meet Zaba mainly because I'm shy like that, and I kind of beat around the bush with stuff. But I did meet MJ. Great person, awesome person in the community. Definitely check her out. And Nostalgics. But then I met Ridge from Alpha Clash. We met one of the guys from Maelstrom, which you know, not to get too long winded on Maelstrom, but they ended up failing because the
Yeah.
guy stole all the money. I met the Titan TCG guys. I met shoot, I know there's other people. D Spirits. Golly, I'm not trying to leave anyone
Was
out, but I can't think of everyone off the top of my head. But
was it you who met Gem Blenders, or was that Sudan? I don't. Someone. I think someone met them at a convention, or might have been Steel. I
both
don't.
Steel and Sudan, because it was
Yeah.
at the Denver Collecticon.
Right. Right.
They weren't at the Charlotte one. So that was a little bit unfortunate because it would have been cool to meet them. They're really
Yeah.
nice people as well.
Gem Blenders looks like a lot of fun. I'm still waiting on that notification from Kickstarter so I can back it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing. We started thinking like that'd be cool to like reach out to some of these people, do interviews, you know, maybe get to do product reviews if they think that like that's, you know, something they want us to do.
And thankfully you have been able to do that with some of them. And
Yeah,
you've gotten
both of them,
MJ on the
really.
podcast, I think twice now. No, just
once, but I know
once.
she's down to come back on. It just kind of
Yeah.
sucked with like Christmas and the holidays hit, and
Yeah.
she travels a lot for like the tournaments and events and stuff for Nostalgics.
Right.
But she's in Florida, so there's anything you can think of in Florida. It's kind of like California, like with you guys.
But
You
more
guys
meth.
get all yeah, but you guys all have so many events that are, I'm not gonna say super
Yeah.
local. It's probably like a couple hours drive at most, maybe a few hours drive.
I guess it all depends on what your idea of local is, because California is such a huge state. Like,
True.
if you say it's a 2-hour drive, I could still be in San Diego County within 2 hours. That's how huge we are. Like, but is it considered local? Some like now, like
I certainly don't call it local if you have to leave your state, unless you're like just crossing the state line and you live near it or something like that. Like for us, going to Charlotte was like 5 hours, which is not super local, but that's not like a terrible drive. I know like Zen is also in Florida, and there's certain conventions we misconstrue the idea of Florida too, because Florida is the same as California with how long it is.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, oh Zen, why don't you go to that event? Like it's, you know, it's in such and such, and you're here, and he's like, it's a 6-hour drive. And I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah,
you should still go, but you know.
No, that's 100% how it is. Like my buddy who grew up in Massachusetts, when we were in the Navy together, he was like, hey, let's go to San Francisco for a weekend. I was like, no, we're not doing that. He was like, why not? He was like, it's in the same state, so it has to be like what, a 2-hour drive? I'm like, no, LA is a 2-hour drive. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah. Much wider. I think San Francisco is maybe 6 to 8 hours, depending on traffic, if in the time of day. Right. Like there's certain points in, like even for San Diego, my wife, she'll be like, hey, she does the statements in the form of a question. Hey, do you want to go to Target? No. Well, too bad, we're going to Target. I'm like, well, hold on, what time is it? Because I will not get on the road at certain times of the day.
Yeah, I've heard out there you guys got what the well, I guess it's more maybe LA, but the 405 I've heard is a nightmare to have to travel on.
Yeah.
So
405, the 8, the 94. Like a lot of our interstates actually are pretty bad, even though most of us don't use it as an actual interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, how close are you to Long Beach?
I think Long Beach is maybe 2.5 to 3 hours. I
Are you gonna
might
try
go
to
to
go
Long
by
Beach.
Putnam?
Maybe. It depends if I can meet up with other people. Because I know my wife won't. She might want to go to it, but then we'll have to bring the kids. And I like my kids, but this is daddy's time. You go away.
Yeah.
See all these
Yeah.
toys, they're mine.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the hard thing, say compared to like a Comic-Con or maybe a different type of convention, the Collecticon is so much more like TCG
It's so focused. Yeah.
focused. So that's kind of the hard thing. Like, when my wife went with me, she has zero interest in cards like that. You know what I mean? I think she's really excited about, what is it, Disney's Lorcana?
Oh, look, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I am so excited.
She's sort of into that. Not hardcore to the point of like, she's going to be buying all kinds of stuff, but I could see her wanting some just to like open it a couple times.
We know Artemis is going to do that.
Oh yeah, Artemis is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
She's
my wife
Disney
actually,
sure.
she's really big on these things, on the Animal Crossing amiibo cards.
Yeah.
She even started her own YouTube channel at one point. Did like 4 videos, and then someone copyrighted her. So she was like, I'm over it. I'm like, I get that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I've been doing my YouTube thing for a little more than 2 years now. Like I started maybe a few months before Logan Paul was like, I'm going to do Pokemon. And then the whole it just went out the window. Like I was able to get cards, and all of a sudden Logan Paul's like, no, cards are fun. And then his people were like, oh, we can make money off this. Yeah. But yeah, for a while I was like, I can't get cards. But that's how my sealed, like I never had a sealed collection. I always like, oh, cards are fun, I'm going to open them. And then it got to the point where like, I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to get cards are. So I was like, I'm just going to buy a handful, keep them sealed. That way, if I want to make another video, I have it. Now I have a whole sealed collection, and my wife hates it.
Yeah. See, I got back into collecting in 2019, like the middle of 2019. I'd always played the games and stuff on and off throughout the years, but I never like bought cards and stuff. And so when I got back into it, it was actually because I had been playing Let's Go Eevee, and I was watching tutorials on how to do stuff because I wasn't sure like on certain things. And then I think it was Real Breaking Nate and Leonhardt's videos started getting suggested because I was looking up obviously a lot of Pokemon stuff, and they're probably oh hey, you might like cards too. And so then I was like, oh my god, I miss those days. So flash forward, the pandemic hits. Cards are still easy to get. It's just more so not being stocked as much. Like that used to be kind of an annoyance. Then, when the Logan Paul thing happened, we had moved. And when we moved out here, there's pretty much nothing. So it was hard to really even find cards, let alone when people were scalping them. So that's basically like why I stopped doing YouTube on my own, was because I never had stuff to buy. Like I couldn't. You couldn't even trust buying it online. Like I had one time when I think it was Champion's Path. I don't know if you guys, if your viewers would remember, I think it's called Mystical Games Collectibles or something like that. I think they had a real store, like a brick and mortar, but then they were also an online seller. And they took a bunch of pre-orders for that and some Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, and then didn't get their allocations. And it was kind of weird because it just all of a sudden happened. They like put out a tweet saying like, sorry, yada, yada, yada. We didn't get the allocations. We're giving out refunds, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, I get a refund. It's processed through PayPal, but then I never got money. And I was kind of like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And so PayPal was a pain to deal with on that, which was annoying. I wish I would have thought about it because I paid with a credit card through PayPal. Always pay with at least a credit card. If you pay with a debit card, it's harder to get your money back.
Yeah.
But I reached out to them and, my credit card, and they got me my money back instantly, luckily. But yeah, from there, it was kind of just like, man, like I'd get lucky and maybe find a box or two at Walmart or Target if we went out to Target. And, Logan Paul, he came out with his stuff, like you said, and kind of ruined it for everyone. I'm sure, like, he gets a bad rap. I'm sure he's a genuine fan, but at the same time, he's a businessman, and it is what it is. But yeah, so just the whole thing with that company, they fell through. They were kind of, I don't know if they were really trying to steal people's money per se, because I mean they initiated refunds. I'm just wondering if the guy had like started investing that money into other stuff, didn't have the money anymore, type of thing. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know what the story was. I just know I got my money back.
And they never put out an official statement.
They did, saying they didn't get anything for their allocations, and then they were initiating the refunds, and that was kind of it.
Yeah.
But like from there, they had a thing saying like reach out to us if you have questions or whatever, and like they never answered anything, whether it was through PayPal's like stuff, whether it was their
Yeah.
Instagram, their Twitter, their Gmail, nothing. They didn't answer
Nothing.
any of my stuff, so it was very sketchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, happens.
I think I got pretty lucky. Well, obviously I live in San Diego, so it's a much larger city than when you live. But Walmart's, Target's, GameStop's, none of them had product. But thankfully, because I am in such a large city, I had all kinds of local TCG shops I can go to. Like some of the shops were like, "Oh, we know you can't get this," so they gouged the fuck out of their cards.
Yeah.
To the point I'm like, I don't like, I'm not even allowed back at 3 stores anymore because I called like the Hidden Fate TTP right behind you. At the time, it was being sold secondhand for like $250. So I was like, well, if they're for, so I was gonna ask the guy because they had no prices on anything. I was like, you know what, for shits and giggles, I'm gonna ask the guy how much they are, and if they're at a decent price, maybe I'll get it. He said, I'm not kidding you, it's $450. I laughed straight to his face and I was like, you're kidding, right? And he was like, no. I was like, okay. So I was like, well, what about these singles in the case? The Charizard from Hidden Fates. I can't remember the time it was or how much it was at the time, but he straight up was trying to sell single cards ungraded for PSA 10 prices. I was like, because I said, I was like, how much are you charging this? And he was like, this much. I'm like, dude, that's not, there's no way that's the ungraded price. He goes, no, but that's going to be a 10 if you grade it. Well, it's not graded right now. So we got to a huge argument and he was like, nope, get out of my store. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to spend money here anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
My one, I'm going to call it local card shop guy did the same thing. I forgot. I think it was Shining Fates when that came out.
That was also hugely scalped.
Yeah, he got allocations in, and on Facebook he put, Shining Fates came in, like come get it while we still have stuff, yada yada yada. And somebody commented asking him what the prices were, and he responded market prices. And I was just like, bro, like you're
not a restaurant.
More than retail. Yeah, I'm just like, you didn't pay more than retail. Like that was a big thing for a while, towards like the start of 2021 through like the middle. Everyone like trying to defend local card shops doing the price gouging and like trying to give their reasoning for it. And I think you had people that like had sponsorships with them trying to basically like defend their sponsorship basically. And then, people like us who are kind of like, bro, like I know maybe after the set's been out, but if you got allocations, you're not paying more than retail. You know what I mean?
Especially if you have a legitimate, especially if you have a legitimate, I can't think of words
distributor.
Right now. Distributor. Yeah, if you have a legitimate one, you're not even getting it you're getting it under retail because you still have to make money if you're going to sell it for retail prices.
Right.
Like there's a card store here in San Diego that I used to go to. My friend that I had some classes with in college actually owned it with some family members. They're already closing. I think they're already closed or they're moving to a whole different state because the way they had cards was ridiculous. Like there are fair prices for the most part, but I don't think they had a legitimate distributor because they were like, oh, we have to go to our person to pick up the cards. I'm like, that's not normally how it works. They deliver it, right? And he goes, no. Like we go to this person, they get the cards, and then we buy it from them. I'm like,
oh, part of like a middleman system.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. So I'm like, okay. but they weren't like awful prices. They're really fair prices. It was just the way they talked about it. I'm like, someone's gonna get screwed somewhere in this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was rare if they had product at some points because sometimes it just went. They had it and then they didn't because they'd only get like 3 to 4 boxes at a time.
Yeah. And that's what's hard about it now for people, because I mean, we've known people from like the friend group that have wanted to start shops, or they did start shops, and it's really hard because it's so competitive. When the pandemic hit, everyone and their mom was like, hey, I can sell cards. And and you're a big Opossum Bud fan. You've seen how that's turned out for a lot of people. So
yeah, it's not even just like the hype beasts that are trying to sell their own. Okay, we'll talk about the new Opossum Bud story because that will get a whole new tangent going. But like, you're not wrong. The people's wanting to start up new brick and mortar stores, online stores. But now all these grading companies too are just, some of them are just like, you don't know what you're doing. Like I like the idea of AGS, but I saw Zen's video of their review. If you can't even place the card in it correctly.
To be fair, that was
in their very beginning stages.
Yeah, like the first couple weeks, like that was within their first month for sure. Artemis has graded with them in person at the conventions, which is, I'm kind of sad they weren't at the Charlotte Collecticon, because they went to like most every other con except that one. That's the one unique thing to them, is it's like robot / AI grading, if you don't know.
Right.
And they feed your card in through this machine. It kind of just, it's like on a belt and it gets scanned from the top. It's not like some sort of like it's being processed through all this stuff and it's going to get torn up. It shouldn't. I mean, whatever.
Right. Keyword shouldn't.
But the one thing I've heard is a lot of inconsistencies. Like Artemis actually sent some cards to them, and so they give you a QR code on the back for you to scan, and it gives you detailed analysis of the card. Awesome concept. It tells you exactly like where the dent was, where the scratch was, where the whitening is, and it kind of gives you a legitimate thing of like, hey, I got a really good 9.5.
Yeah, I wish PSA and Beckett would do that.
Right. And so anyways, she scans the card and it got a different grade than what's on the card.
Really?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have a YouTube or anything, so that has to be somewhere on like a post or a story, or maybe on one of her lives.
She was either live on Twitch or live on Instagram. One of the two, I'm not 100% sure. Now I will say AGS, if you reach out to them, they're pretty decent with their customer service. Like in Zen's case, he reached out to them and they were like, yeah, we're going to make it right, blah, blah, blah. And he never followed through with that.
Yeah.
However you feel with that, but that was on him.
At that point, that's on his fault. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, that they have your, they did a lot of marketing. So I think they were getting a lot of business in, and it was probably one of those things where like now when push comes to shove, you're kind of like making those little mental error, mistake things. And you're kind of like, man, like it sucks because it hurts you when you're such a small company.
Right.
But they are kind of one of few. I think there's a couple of other robo graders that have popped up. I haven't really paid attention though. They're the only ones. We actually had them on the podcast and got to like talk with them a little bit and stuff. But yeah, you're certainly right though. The idea, like so many graders have popped up too, and it's just kind of like, how do you pick?
But out of the newer companies, I think AGS is the only one that is not only forming their legs, but their legs are going to be able to stand on. I think if they can last the 5-year challenge, I think they're going to be able to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot more of their cards popping up on like eBay, and their slabs are really, really nice.
I do like them. They do look nice.
They remind me of CGC slabs, not the exact same or anything. Like they have different labels, obviously, and all that, but they're that crystal clear kind of like compact design. Because a lot of people complain about PSA's the frosted look. Yeah. A lot of people don't like that. I'm not like too picky on stuff, but I just really like the AGS and like CGC look. It's very like kind of crystal clear and clean in my opinion. But yeah, I think AGS, if they can kind of minimize their small mistakes, I don't see why they can't be like a top dog. Maybe not necessarily on the PSA, BGS, and like CGC level, but like the next step down. But only time will tell.
See, I think they might be able to take CGC's spot someday and within the big three of the grading companies.
Mhm.
CGC in the last couple of years have had some major, uh, not recently with them taking in altered cards with people cleaning their products with stuff they shouldn't be cleaning it with, or getting the little presser to put the folds away on the bends of the cards. But even before that, like when I decided to start grading about 2 3 years ago, their slabs at one point you were able to take a butter knife and just pop them open and switch the cards out, and resellers were doing it that way.
Oh
So
wow.
they would get like a 9 or an 8 or a 9, pop it out, switch out the card that would be like maybe a 5 or 6, and then sell it as if it was a 7 or an 8 or whatever the number was, and then regrade the card again and
Yeah.
get the exact same grade and repeat the process. I'm pretty sure they fixed the slabs at that point, but I've seen the videos on it on Instagram when it first happened. I was like, well, I'll never trust CG. Like, I will never buy a secondhand CGC card.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then yeah,
to be
their
fair,
controversies were pretty bad.
if you're into buying slabs, you got to do your due diligence with stuff. So like I think
Absolutely.
almost all of them have a code you can scan to, for
Mhm.
one, make sure it's a legitimate scan, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um and then two, just, it's not saying like you can tell the difference between a 9 and a 9.5. I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. I don't have
No,
those hawk eyes for
I'm
that,
not a
but
professional grader either. I have no
just
idea.
just make sure if you're buying, especially like on eBay, check the seller's ratings and
Absolutely.
stuff. Check the card. Kind of do your due diligence. Don't be so easy to scam.
Yeah.
You know. um,
Uh, Same thing with people who want to use third party services for grading. Like I
yeah.
did, I use a third party service for my Beckett cards because I love Beckett. I prefer them
Mhm.
over everybody. I like their point 0.5 systems, how they tell you what grade got what. Kind of very
Yeah.
similar to CGC, but I love how harsh they are because if you got that grade, you got that grade.
Yeah.
Um, and I like their slabs personally. They're nice and stackable. They're thick, so
Yeah.
they're not going to break very easily. Um, I forgot where I was going with this because I am an old man. Uh, I'm not lying. I completely forgot where my tangent was going. Um, oh yeah, third party services. Uh, I will never use a third party service again. It's the because my experience with the ones that I had for the local guys were just in the beginning was great because I've used them twice. They were very communicative. They were they told me step by step where my cards were, like, but then on the second time around, like, I don't know if they got too many orders, they got too many people working with them,
Mhm.
but there was no communication. Like, I gave them my cards at a convention, like, great, here, I did everything, paid them, and then like 2.5 months later, I was like, hey, I don't know where my cards are, what step they are. Like last time you were very communicative. And it took me like I went to their business email, I called their phone numbers. I
Mhm.
had to like it got to the point where I had to get to their personal Instagrams and be like, yo, motherfuckers, where are my cards?
Right.
And they're like, oh, we got them. I'm like, what? They're like, oh yeah, we've had them for like a week. I'm like, oh, okay. So that was the point where I'm like, I'm getting a PSA membership. I got that. I've been
Mhm.
fairly happy with PSA. I can't be mad. It's PSA.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad that Beckett finally has their online services up and running again because they
Mhm.
had so many at one point. They were like, nope, you have to do everything by hand, and my handwriting is shit. So I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not taking any chances with that.
Yeah.
Um, but we definitely went way over my goal of the 20 to 30 minutes. But I'm not mad at it. Like I said, it went naturally. Everything flowed to the way I would have liked it for my first time doing this. And I had a lot of fun with you, Grumpy. Again, tell the people where they can find you, all your socials, links in the description down below. As always, guys, please check out my good friend, a Grumpy Charizard. Grumpy, go ahead.
Yeah, so if you want to check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv slash a grumpy Charizard. I'm also on Twitter. I think it's spelled a little off because there's someone who actually has Grumpy Charizard and refuses to give it up, but
That
such is
jerk.
life. Yeah. And then a Grumpy Charizard on Instagram. And I have TikTok. Sometimes I make TikTok, sometimes I don't. So You know, don't worry about that one if you don't want to. Just those three is probably good. And then the Cardboard Addicts podcast, if you want to check us out, that'd be cool. Maybe Gonzo can make a guest appearance over there as well.
Oh. Thank you again. As always, guys, my name is Gonzo, and I'll talk to you next time. Peace.
Peace out.